Watch what's approaching, the supreme moment. Reality striking closer than it seems, don't it? Go ahead, it's for the taking if you want it. If not, the dream dies and you'll be forever haunted. Then confront it.
Hey, what's good? So, since I was able to pick up at least one copy of the LR Ultra Instinct Goku, I wanted to test out the Super Strength Realm of Gods category team on the Extreme Super Battle Road setting. Again, this is pretty much the makeshift team that I decided to go with. The friend lead is also the Ultra Instinct Goku as well, 79%. As you saw, mine is, again, at 55%. So, you'll be able to see some differences in terms of like the output, I guess, offensively and defensively. So, that'll give you kind of a distinction between the two. As you saw, a couple of the units that were included, I did include the Whis and LR Beerus and Whis as well. Just maintain the same rotation for those guys linked up, even though, you know, the Whis unit does provide a 50% increase toward attack for all allies. It's just better off because the condition is you do have to have a Beerus unit on rotation. So ultimately, this team is a little bit scaled down, I guess you could say, because the LR Ultra Instinct Goku unit does have Realm of Gods category key plus 4 HP attack and defense increase of 130%, so not your typical 170% leads on a more optimal setting. But again, I just wanted to test out a double Ultra Instinct Goku leader setup and see how the Super Strength team will do overall. So again, I did only include units that fall into the Realm of God category. So, you know, honestly, I could have included a couple of different units that would have provided some, you know, defensive abilities or stunning abilities, but I kind of wanted to keep it strictly within the Realm of Gods category within the strength type units. So this is pretty much the format you have. The other thing I want to note is I did, you know, once the rotations were cleaned up, I wanted to maintain one rotation again with LR Beerus and Whis, as well as the strength Whis unit, and then the other rotation would essentially be the friend lead for the LR Ultra Instinct Goku, and then the LR Gogeta or LR Gogeta Blue on the other rotation. Even though I have the Super Saiyan God Vegeta unit, and they do at least have, you know, godly power as a link, Vegeta actually doesn't have prepared for battle, so I decided to maintain a link between, again, LR UI Goku and LR Gogeta Blue, because ultimately I just wanted to ensure the highest chances available to get that 18 key super attack, because at least, you know, from what I saw on this run, it was a little bit difficult for both of the LRs to get it. So, you know, I kind of prioritized the 18 key for the UI Goku when available, so that's pretty much the format with that. This is really, I was just kind of testing around, see how links would work with Vegeta and UI Goku, and then just kind of ended up going with, again, the Gogeta Blue and UI Goku linked up together throughout most of the run. So, you know, I didn't really get a chance to talk too much about the new LR, so let me just briefly cover some of the skill sets here. So, in terms of the super attack, essentially pretty similar. It disables enemy guard, and then depending on 12 or 18 key, colossal or mega colossal damage to enemy. And then the passive skill is pretty much where things get very interesting, to say the least. Attack and defense increase of 77%, so that's pretty much the base passive. On top of that, again, you do have great chance of evading enemy attacks, including supers, for 7 turns from the start. And then high chance of evading enemy attacks, including super attacks, starting from the 8th turn. Plus an additional key plus 1, up to a max of 7. Attack and defense increase of 11%, with a max of 77% with each attack evaded. That also includes super attacks. But in this case, for most of the battles, I think you're gonna have a very hard time going past 7 turns. Typically on average, it's probably, you know, 5 to 6 turns depending on each stage. You know, so for the most part, you won't really even be able to, you know, get the attack and defense and key meters up because, you know, it only activates starting from the 8th turn. So that's kind of meant for a little bit more toward longer battles, like, you know, Legendary Goku event or Infinite Dragon Ball History stages. So that's pretty much where this unit would excel the most in that type of setting. So back to the original point, I think even with the 130% leads, these guys did fairly well. I mean, for the most part, it was pretty smooth. I did consume some items just to be a little bit extra cautious. Probably could have been, I probably could have gotten away on a couple of turns where I didn't have to necessarily use it, but I'm more so on the philosophy that if you do have items, you might as well use it. Better be safe than sorry. So instead of completely ruining an entire run, it's better to pretty much use an item and make sure you're able to complete it. So that's pretty much my takeaway with that. By the way, the LR Gogeta Blue on this team is also at 55%, so depending on the potential levels, this guy could also be a lot better. I'm not quite sure. I haven't tested the Extreme Super Battle Road setting on 130% leads with the Gogeta Blue unit, so it's hard to say how much of an impact it would actually make, but I would imagine it's a pretty decent amount. But either way, I think after the transformation for Gogeta Blue, you're expecting about 2 million attack stats on a decent rotation, and then of course the attack would increase based on the amount of attacks performed up until a certain max limit. So that's pretty much the takeaway with that. Again, I did maintain the links between the two units because of the additional link skill for prepare for battle. Key +2 does certainly make a difference in some cases. So again, I did prioritize the 18 key super for UI Goku, and that's why it's set up the way it is. Yeah, I'm looking over Gogeta Blue's stats, and of course with the super attacks, depending on what you have, raises attack and defense for 1 turn with the 12 key, and then raises defense for 1 turn with the 18 key super attack. Again, the attack and defense does increase by 7% with each attack performed up to 77%, and this is after the transformation, so similar to UI Goku, it's a little bit difficult to take full advantage of it because the transformation requirement for this unit is from the 4th turn from the start of battle, so you're already 4 turns in, and basically you have to build up that attack, so it does take a little bit of a, I don't know, it's a little bit time consuming, and I'm not quite sure if you can get the full boost within the average of 6 turns within each battle on this particular stage. The one thing that Gogeta Blue at least does have for the have going for it is basically the ability to launch an additional attack, so that's kind of a good thing. The other thing is you could certainly use the unit as a floater in the 3rd slot because, of course, you have a high chance of evading enemies' attack. That also includes supers as the 3rd attacker in the turn. But in this case, again, that's back to the dilemma, right? I initially wanted UI Goku to link up with Vegeta and then essentially use Gogeta Blue as a floater to get the evasions to kick in, but ultimately, again, I decided to focus a little bit more on the key boosting links over the attack boosting links, and also serving Gogeta essentially as a floater and avoiding the attacks as much as possible. So that's pretty much the team I went with. Now, in terms of how frequently Goku dodges enemy attacks, it really does depend. I mean, I don't know if it was this particular one, but there was an instance where I've had both units on the same rotation, like both leaders were on the same rotation, and the friend lead did not dodge whatsoever, and then my lead ended up dodging every single attack. So it really is RNG based, and yeah, it ultimately depends on luck. There's not really a good way to predict that. I mean, a great chance to evade enemy attacks equates to a 70% chance, but sometimes that 70% will never kick in. So that's really what it comes down to. After the 7 turns are over, beginning in the 8th turn, you do have maintain the ability for a high chance. So that's a 50% equivalent, and on top of that you get key boosting and attack and defense increasing ability. So it kind of is a little bit of a trade-off, I guess, with that 20% decrease from evasion. Now, in terms of the potential system builds, I mean, it really depends how you look at it. You know, I've seen a lot of people go with either a 9-17 distribution, 9 toward additional attack and 17 toward criticals, or even level 6 additionals and level 20 crits. So it seems like a lot of players are a little bit more focused on the critical hit component versus the additionals. You know, 9-17 I think is reasonable. 15-11 you could certainly go that route if you wanted to. Yeah, I mean, it really does depend. I guess the reason why most people decided to go more toward crits is probably because, you know, the ability, you know, the equivalent of effectively attacking against all types with a little bit of a bonus, right, with the critical hit percentage. And then, you know, that's pretty much what I would equate to as to why people were more focused toward criticals than additionals. I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence. If I did have dupes, I literally am on the fence of which route to go. I guess, you know, if you go level 15 additionals and you don't get a crit, you know, it's not really going to do much damage to the enemy, especially if it's a type disadvantage scenario. So, you know, it really does depend. But, you know, back to the overall team itself, you know, keep in mind this is a 130% lead setup, so you're not really seeing, I mean, you're essentially seeing a pretty huge gap between 130% dual leads versus the, you know, 170%. I mean, that's essentially 40% per leader, so I would imagine that makes a substantial amount of difference, you know, with both leaders combined. So with that being said, I think the units aren't performing too bad. I mean, they certainly did a lot better, and this particular team, they did pretty well. I mean, all the units were essentially serving a very specific purpose. The rotations were, you know, enabled a certain way to optimize as much as possible. So that's pretty much the takeaway with that. Again, the only issue is you know, having the ability for all of the units to get the 18 key super attack. So again, because I wanted to go with strictly a Realm of God setup, a little bit of an issue there. I probably could have, you know, went with a little bit more of a broad team, like, you know, included some normal super strength type units, because Goku does still provide Key +4 and 100% toward HP attack and defense. So, you know, I could have certainly included units like the Easy A strength type Super Saiyan Gotenks that is a pretty good stunner, as well as a good support for the allies. And then, you know, of course, Transforming Kefla could have been on there. Honestly, the Super Tank, you know, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta probably could have been on there as well. I think within the capacity of Super Battle Road, he probably would have been able to maintain, you know, the tanking abilities throughout each of the battles within the stage itself. So a lot of good options, and, you know, versatility and team building. Again, I just wanted to keep it within the Realm of God setup, so within the capabilities of the units I have. I went with this option. So I'm sure there are a couple of units that you probably noticed that could have been a viable option in terms of even within a Realm of Gods. You know, the one that comes to mind is the Kaioken Blue Goku unit. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of that unit, so, you know, you know, of course I can't include it. So, you know, certainly a good option there. I'm not really sure about, you know, the defensive capabilities of that unit. I would tend to worry a little bit. I'm sure he'll be fine, but that does make me kind of think about it a little bit. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to the end of the run. I think everybody did pretty well, considering, again, in closing, 130% double leads. They did pretty well, and they linked up well together. Again, the 18 key is the only issue out of the bunch. Orb changing units and stuff like that would have certainly helped, but, you know, overall they did pretty solid. And yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't expect any better or any worse, so they pretty much completed the task here. So we'll go ahead and close out. Hopefully you enjoyed this little test run on Super Battle Road, or Extreme Super Battle Road I should say, with the Super Strength Realm of Gods category setup. Again, thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate you guys checking the video out, and definitely staying tuned for the